session 3, entitled Co-Creating Youth Engagement will feature Dr. Amjad Saleem, PhD. So let's move into our next slide.
Can you see the next?
No.
I already. Can you see?
Yeah, I can see the slide.
Okay.
I will start again. Thank you very much, and welcome everyone to our third session of Tsunami Next Generation Protocol Resilience, session 3. Co-creating youth engagement will feature Dr. Amjad Saleem, who serves as IFRC Manager for Volunteer Youth and Education and Development. So let's move into our next slide.
I think there's some issue, Isru. I don't see the slides are moving from my end. So let me end it and put it again.
Yeah, I hope you know exactly what to do. You upload your passport size photo in where you see the passport.
Okay. Isru, can you see the slides now?
Yeah, I can see.
Okay. Before we start, we are going to do parallel translations today. So there would be an interpretation link on your screen. So if you want to join Bahasa Indonesia, please go to that. And also, if you want to listen in Sinhalese, please join that. Sinhalenu api making other මේ වැඩසටහන සිංහල භාෂාවෙන් පරිවර්තනය කරනවා. ඒ නිසා මේ ඉන්ටර්පිටේෂන් කියලා බටන් එකක් තියෙනවා. ඉන්ටර්පිටේෂන් බටන් එකේ සිංහල කියන එකට ගියාම අපිට පුළුවන් සිංහල භාෂාවෙන් සම්බන්ධ වෙන්න ඉන්ටර්පිටේෂන්. Okay, over to you, Isru.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nobil. So welcome everyone to our third session of the Tsunami 20 Plus Next Generation Protocol Resilience. Today we welcome Dr. Amjad Mohamed Saleem, PhD, who serves as the IFRC Manager for Volunteer Youth and Education and Development. The today title will be Co-Creating Youth Engagement. So these are our regulations. This meeting will be recorded and posted on the Resilience YouTube channel, Resilience Tube. We will give you the link for that. And group photos from session may also be used promotion of non-commercial events. To assist with documentation, we are using AI transcription services to create minutes of this meeting. Please feel free to reach out if you have any questions or concerns. Thank you for your participation and cooperation. So next slide. So before we start, we have our ice break session. So Patch.
I think you have to read out the ground rules now.
So these are the ground rules. Respect, value everyone's voice and opinions. Inclusivity, ensure all participants feel comfortable to share. Clarity, communicate clearly and concisely. Collaboration, work together towards shared understanding and goals. Ground rules, please keep your microphones muted unless you are speaking. Raise your hand if you would like to contribute or ask a question. Give everyone a chance to speak by keeping your questions and statements brief. Use airtime wisely to ensure that all voices are heard.
Over to you, Pesh.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone who have tuned in, and thank you, Osuru, for handing it over to me, and Dr. Noble for the rest. So I'm going to take her through introduction, and I'm quite sure throughout the week we had a lot of energy, and in case of anything, please that you have maybe any challenge that you have gone throughout the week, but you for the sake of the session you pay attention. So I'm going to take her through a small bite breaker, and in this icebreaker, don't reason too much. Just look at the question, then you give me the answer within 3-5 seconds. So you go to the next slide. So now like in the previous session, when we tried to say that participants should put on their cameras, other people were saying hello in English. But this time around today, I want you to say hello in your local language. If you speak whatever language you speak, me I speak Nuer. Hello in Nuer language, there's always a word for it. So please, now we are going to turn on our cameras all. Then we are going to say hello in our local languages, not in English. Unless English is your language, then you can say hello. Okay?
Okay.
Yes. So let's open our cameras and we'll say, I'm going to count 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Hi, Buan.
Hi, Boan.
I'm going to say 1, 2, 3. You say hello in your language. 1, 2, 3.
Selamat malam.
Hi, Buan.
Salam.
Welcome.
Salam.
Assalamualaikum.
Selamat malam.
Anyway, thank you. So now I'm going to also ask partners, partners. I'm going to start with African partners. You said hello in your different languages. Me, I'm also going to say hello in my language. So can we start? 1, 2, 3.
Halo.
Salam, salam,
1, 2, 3.
Halo.
salam, salam, salam.
Halo.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Now let me come to Indonesia partners, Asia partners. You can put on your cameras and you say hello in your local language, not in maybe Arabic or what, I don't know, the common language there, but in that language, that local language of yours. Yeah. Let
Okay.
1, 2, 3.
Selamat malam.
Hi, Buan. Welcome. Assalamualaikum.
Halo, selamat
Selamat
Boan.
malam.
Selamat malam.
Okay, thank you so much.
Namaste.
Yes, I even don't, some of the words are very complicated. Calling them is very hard for me, but I'm quite sure with time I'll learn. By December, I'll get to know certain words. So let's go to the next same. Yeah. So we have said it in the next. Yes, next.
Asia.
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 Asia. I left out Asia.
No, you did. You included us.
Okay. Because I just generalized. Okay. Now let's all say together. We're going to say once again hello. Then we say resilient. Okay. I'm going to count 1, 2, 3. You say hello in your language. Then we say resilient. 1, 2, 3.
Resilient.
Resilience.
Resilient.
Okay, resilient.
Resilient.
So we need to be strong. Okay. So let's go to the next.
Malaysia.
So now, yes, so we're going to questions. You question only at the question time. So like us, we're going to welcome our speakers or those who will be presenting. So you make sure that you ask question when that time for question has come, because sometimes when you begin to ask question, it may make the speaker maybe lose focus on where he was taking the program on. So please you make sure you can wait for question time, or if your question is urgent, then you can put it in the chat box So as the speaker is presenting, can be in position to show it.
Okay. Okay. I think it's Kiri, it's your turn, I think. Am I correct? Kiri, are you there? I think you have to come to the English room and say, otherwise we won't hear you.
Hello?
Yes, Kiri, yes, we hear you.
Okay.
Go ahead. This slide is yours.
Okay. So, thank you for all the participants and the partners who have registered. We have 84 applications and 35 of them are accepted. And also, we have more than 20 partners and more to be added. We are still welcoming all of you. And also, we encourage all of you can still register for this program, and we will give you some other assignments to complete for these 10 sessions. Also, we encourage all of us, partners, and also the participants to subscribe to the our YouTube channel, which called Resilience 2. You can see in the screen www.youtube.com/resilience24983. You can see there
I think we are not hearing you now, Kiri.
So we have 2 sessions already posted in the Resilience 2 YouTube channel. And now is the 3rd session. So hold on. We go to the next slide first. This is very important information for all of us, especially the participants. We will have 10 sessions overall, which is started 2 weeks ago. So all these 10 sessions are mandatory for you to get certificate. So let's say we simulate the questions like this. I joined only today. Can I get a certificate? Or let's say you say, I miss a session. Can I get the certificate? So if you join today or you miss a session, in order to get the certificate, please
Kiri, we don't hear you anymore. Okay. Yeah. So basically, what Kiri was trying to tell was if you didn't get a participate in the session or you are just starting today, you can always participate in the program or complete the program by writing one-page reflection about the videos of the previous sessions. Okay, so if you are joining, you have to watch those videos and submit one-page summary to the group. And also, if you could not participate or you are joining today, again, you have to go back and do those 2 sessions for you to get the certificate of completion, because our aim is to make sure that you are benefiting from this program. Kiri, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah,
Can you
sometimes
hear me?
you disturb some disturbance, but please go ahead. Sorry, I had to intervene.
Thank you, Dr. Nofer, for completing my my slide before. So now we come to another reminder, friendly reminder. Have
Okay. Kiri, please let me know if you are in, but I will continue due to the time's sake. So we have created a link for you to upload photos. So this is not the main photo submission form, but this is for us to do some group work if we have time. So if you have not submitted any photographs, please kindly submit. This is a Google document with Google Slides. Please go to the slides and upload your photo, and Isuru has kindly done it for us. So like this, the photo name, the name of the person, contributor, date of capture, that is when the photo was taken, and location. And this is Isuru's narrative about the issue. And also you can have a small question about that you want to discuss. Okay, so Kiri, I will take over from you to introduce the speaker, but just wanted to give an overview. Before that, let me introduce the interpretation to the Sinhalese participants, Sri Lankan Sinhala speaking participants. අපි අද දිනේ මෙම වැඩසටහන ඉංග්‍රීසි භාෂාවෙන් කෙරුණට මේ වැඩසටහනේ සිංහල පරිවර්තනයක් අපිට ලබා ගන්න පුළුවන්. මේ වැඩසටහන සිදුවෙන අතරම මේ අපේ ටැබ් එකේ කෙරවලේම තියෙනවා ඉන්ටර්ප්‍රිටේෂන් කියලා ඔප්ෂන් එකක්. හරිද? ඒ ඉන්ටර්ප්‍රිටේෂන් ඔප්ෂන් එකේ තියෙනවා සිංහල, තමිල්, සිංහල, ඉංග්ලිෂ්, භාෂා ඉන්දුනීසියා කියලා. අපේ අද දවසේ අපි දෙමළ භාෂාවෙන් පරිවර්තනය කරන්න අපිට අවශ්‍යතාවයක් තියෙනවා නම් ඒක සඳහන් කරන්න අපි ලබන සතියට ඒක සූදානම් කරගන්න පුළුවන්. ඔබ ගිහිල්ලා ඒ ට්‍රාන්ස්ලේෂන් එකේ සිංහල කියන බටන් එකේ එබුවොත් ඉන්ටර්ප්‍රිටේෂන් කියලා ලෝක ගෝලයක් ඇඳලා තියෙනවා. ඒ ඉන්ටර්ප්‍රිටේෂන් එකේ සිංහල කියන සලකුණ උඩ ක්ලික් කරොත් ඔබට මේ වැඩසටහනේ යද්දි සිංහල භාෂාවෙන් ඒකට සවන් දෙන්න පුළුවන්. බොහොම ස්තුතියි. Then other member වැඩසටහනට මුලින්ම as we are having people who are joining this program for the first time, let me take a quick few minutes to explain the process. So our objective is to create a photo wall of resilience to commemorate the tsunami. But we are not limiting only to tsunami. We are going to incorporate different types of disasters, emergencies, and challenges that are happening in your respective communities. It can be floods, it can be landslides, it can be any conflict, anything that you are interested in. It can be climate change. So we have now called for applications. Still, we are accepting applications. If you are interested, please submit an application. You have already done. And if there are friends who are interested in participating, please tell them also. And also, now we are doing these virtual trainings. We have 10 virtual trainings. We did the first one on photo voice on the 26th, and last week we did the storytelling in humanitarian context, and today we are going to talk about youth engagement. So likewise, there would be 10 sessions. So you can join all those 10 sessions, and then we will use the photo voice methodology to create the wall. So tsunami photo wall of resilience. So throughout these 10 weeks, we will tell you how to contribute to the wall, and you will be an owner of that wall. And if there are any new partners, Thanks a lot for joining. You are mostly welcome to join us, and we will have the opportunity of offering you the co-branding with that, as well as the ability to contribute to the project with us. So with that brief introduction, I will now introduce our speaker today. We have a very distinguished speaker, Dr. Amjad Mohamed Saleem, PhD. He is the manager of the volunteering, youth, and education development at the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, based in Geneva. A global team focused on education, youth engagement, and volunteering. In this role, he manages the delivery of global policy and programs to the IFRC and its 191 national societies. He has been responsible for overseeing the IFRC engagement on the Global Youth Mobilization Project of the Big Six. He is also research fellow and faculty of the Education University of Malaya, Malaysia, and non-resident fellow at the Center for Conflict and Humanitarian Studies in Doha. He has worked in different perspectives of humanitarian work, interfaith engagement, and peace building. He applies his extensive knowledge on peace building, humanitarian affairs, and development work and interfaith engagement in many domains, including as trustees for Muslim Aid UK, board member of the Geneva Peace Building Platform, People Beyond Borders, and Edu Spots. His publication include journal articles, several book chapters, and a book on lessons from Aceh. Amjad is an alumni of the International Visitor Leadership Program and the Geneva Center for Security Policy, and has a master's in engineering from Imperial College London and MBA from U21 Global Singapore, Manipur Global Next Malaysia, and a PhD from Exeter University. So despite his very busy schedule, Dr. Amjad Mohamed Saleem has kindly agreed to join us with this event. And over to you, Dr. Amjad. I'm really sorry we took a lot of your time, but that is just to set the tone right for our young people to benefit from it. With much gratitude, over to you, Dr. Amjad.
Thank you so much, Dr. Novel. It's good afternoon, actually, from Geneva. I think it's good evening to a lot of you, and maybe even good morning to some of you. It's a real pleasure for me to be here. And when Dr. Novel told me about this, I said, no, I have to be here and to kind of contribute to this part of the perspective. So thank you so much for allowing me to come and share a few ideas with you, and really around youth engagement and co-creating youth engagement, because I think it's an important perspective that we have here. I also want to give a shout out to folks coming from Sri Lanka. Obviously, that's my country of heritage, so really good to see people here. But also, I see there are some people from Palang Merah, Indonesia. So that's the Indonesia Red Cross. So I'm glad that I could see some PMI names at least there. So really honored to be here sharing some ideas with you all. I will just speak for a few minutes, sharing some ideas, and then I really want to have this as a conversation. So I'm not going to have slides because I prefer just to have a dialogue, and then we can proceed on that. Before I start, maybe I want to ask, because we're celebrating 20 years now, so I just want to ask, just to kind of get a gauge of people here. So you have the raise hand function on Zoom. So just by that, if I just ask the question, how many people were born before 2004? on this call now. We have 32 participants. How many of you were born before 2004? If you can raise your hand, then that just to kind of see how many people were there. Okay, so can people hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
we can hear you. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So let me see now how many people have raised their hand. So we have 7, 8 people. So 8 people out of 32 were on. Okay, 8 people out of 32 were born before 2004. How many people were born around 2004? Okay, 3 people. Okay. And how many people have been born after 2004? Only one person. 2. Okay. So we're talking about a relatively low, like young population, and that's important to know, because the tsunami, in its sense, is something that, as Dr. Noville was saying, for many of you, it's a historical perspective, right? Many of you may not have been even born when the tsunami took place, or if you were born, you were extremely young, and so do not understand what happened there, and the amount of tragedy and trauma it had on communities. Okay, there are a few people who are having problems with my sound. I don't know whether it's from my end or whether it's from their end. But Dr. Novel, you can hear me, right? So
I can hear you. Yeah. Manish, yeah.
Lowang is saying he can't hear anything. So
can the others hear? I can hear you. What about Isru? Can you hear us?
We can. Yeah, I can hear.
Yeah.
okay,
I can
so
hear.
maybe it may be.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Give
I
me
can hear.
Amjad, I'm trying to see now has the Manish, I have added you as a translator, interpreter.
Okay.
Are you-
Yeah, interpretation working as well, because sometimes when you put the interpretation, you unmute the. But anyway, let me continue.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, and the reason why we wanted to talk about this particular thing about youth engagement is because, roughly at the moment, 52% of the world's population is under 30 years old, right? So we're talking about relatively a young population. So what we need to do is figure out how do we have that conversation with young people. And so what I want to kind of share with you is just some ideas there, and then, we will come into a dialogue later on. And I want to kind of start with a few things. So the first is to kind of dispel the myth, right? And most of us and most of you have been in a situation where someone has sat on a platform or a podium and has said, yes, we definitely need to engage with young people because young people are the future. Right? Most of you would have heard that at some point in your thing. Young people are the future. And I want to kind of challenge that, to kind of say that actually that's a myth. Because young people, sort of saying young people are the future means that tomorrow, you'll be doing things tomorrow. And it sort of pushes that agency away. But actually, the future isn't something out there, some distant horizon, right? It's now. And it's calling for us to step up and do something. Right? It's calling us to step up and take action now. So the first myth is that youth are not the future. Youth are the present. Youth are now. 52% of the world are young people. It's easy to forget that young people have been at the forefront of historical social movements, sparking revolutions, driving progress. Whether it's civil rights movement, whether it's the current fight for climate action, Fridays for Future, all of those things, young people are catalysts in this process. And so to think about saying something for the future means we don't acknowledge the present and the contribution to the present. That's the first one. The second one is that it's not about grand gestures. And this is something that in your work, in your Photo Voices work, that you kind of need to re-emphasize and reflect on. It's not about grand gestures and doing something monumental. It's about small action, documenting small action, doing things in your circle of influence. And I want to tell you a story that reminds me of myself first, but I want to tell you a story that really speaks to this, right? When we talk about the effect of small action and the effect of young people in that. And, it's a story of a father who comes home after a long day at office. He wants to sit and read his newspaper, or he wants to read his tablet. And his son, 6-year-old son, wants to play with him, keeps on pestering. So he sort of goes to a magazine, it's a travel magazine, and he sees a picture of the globe, picture of the world. So he tears it up into little pieces and gives it to his son to design like a jigsaw puzzle. And he thinks that it'll buy him maybe about 30, 40 minutes. And to his amazement, the son returns within 10 minutes with the picture perfectly assembled. And the father asks him, how did you achieve this? And the child says, well, on the other side of this picture was a picture of a man. Once I got the person together, the world was okay. And I think this really kind of speaks to this essence of what I think the work that many of us are doing in humanitarian settings, but also what you in your Photo Voices programs are also kind of looking at and exploring, which is the essence of making the world right starts with a single man. And if we can sort of support that one person, then we're able to kind of contribute towards a bigger historical change in society. So that's I think for me that the second aspect of this, right? The second aspect is that it's not about big things. It's about starting small. It's about understanding that your influence, that you have control over, you have to worry about what you have control over, and often you have control over that particular space that you're in, and doing something that is there, and doing something that matters, but just from that space. The third one, of course, is that when you work in youth engagement and when you work on this, you're not working alone, right? Here you have a community that you're part of. You are embarking on this journey, and each of you have a shared vision of a world where everyone has the opportunity to thrive, and each of you can be involved. So use that collective power that you have here to be part of something a little bit more. But also recognize that, when we talk about youth, and it's very interesting to kind of explore this, right? Because when we talk about youth, we often assume you are all a homogeneous community. All youth are homogeneous. And you and I know that's not true. So sometimes when we talk about youth, we do a disservice by not understanding the heterogeneity of young people and the multiple identities that you have. And as young people, the question of identity of who you are can be very contentious, right? You're always being placed in one corner, being asked to identify who you are, to make choices based on your history, your background, your culture, your religion. But you're not. We are not. We are not single unitary definitions. We are not. We have many identities, many associations, many membership categories. And depending on the circumstances which we are facing, those categories, those memberships become important. So a reminder that in that space of that work and engagement, when you make choices on the importance that you place on that identity, it doesn't obliterate the importance of another. Dr. Novel, I see that singular translation has an issue. Do you want me to continue or?
Please continue. I will
Okay.
drop to the translation room and try to fix that. Just
Okay, great, great. So part of that engagement is that you need to understand that heterogeneity. And so when we talk about youth engagement, right, where we need to recognize that heterogeneity, we need to recognize the community that you're in. You need to recognize that diversity of opinions and identities. And you have to forge those connections. And so when we talk about co-creating with young people, what we're sort of saying is, first and foremost, you must be able to create a space to listen. So co-creation is about sitting and listening to ideas that others have. And so we listen to each other. You have an idea, I have an idea. My idea may be different based on my experience and certain aspects of knowledge. But that doesn't mean that your idea, which may be different, is any less or more. It's just different. And so we need to kind of listen to different ideas to understand those stories. Co-creation also means not just listening, but supporting and following up. So it's collaboration. It's having the space to innovate. So when we talk about these ideas, it's also about ensuring that we're collaborating, we're creating the space for that. And so, for example, within the IFRC, we, as Dr. Noble said for the introduction to me, I'm part of something called the Global Youth Mobilization, which is part of the big 6 youth organizations. And one thing that we do is that we provide spaces for young people to give us ideas to their solutions for problems at their communities at the local level. But once they give those ideas and we help them through kind of taking some thinking about those ideas, we also follow up with support for taking those ideas into action. So in your work, you need to be doing that. So you listen, you create the space for young people, but you also have to support them taking those ideas into action. And we know it's not about millions of dollars going through. Sometimes it's $100, sometimes it's $500. But the opportunity for them to take action on the ground and to do something, to innovate, to test an idea is important. So that's the kind of sort of aspect of what co-creating with young people means. So that's the kind of third aspect of what I wanted to kind of share with you. And then the fourth aspect of this is that when we do this work and when we co-create, there's an intergenerational conversation that needs to happen, right?
මේ කටයුතු කරේ
That yes,
හතරවෙනි
as young people, we have ideas.
අපිට
We're frustrated sometimes with the lack of progress that our elders have made. We're angry sometimes at
සමහර වෙලාවට
the
අපේ
mistakes that have been made.
වැඩිහිටි පරම්පරාව
But we also need to be prepared to
අභිවෘද්ධිය
listen to some of the things that have been done, because remember, right?
අපිට
Yeah, the elders have also been young people, and they may have also been part of our. They may have been where we are,
තමයි අද ඒගොල්ලෝ
and
වැඩිහිටියෝ
so
කවදා හරි අපි
we need
වගේ
to listen to them,
ඉලා ඉන්න ඇති. එතකොට අද අපි
and we need to create that space for that conversation. There needs to be an intergenerational conversation here.
තියෙන්න ඇති. ඒ නිසා මේ
And
අපි මේ
on the other side,
අර
the elder, or the more mature, the older community also needs to have that aspect of
අවබෝධය
recognizing they were young once,
ඒ වගේම
and
වැඩිහිටියන්
there were certain mistakes that they made that they can advise.
අපි
It needs to be a conversation, and this is why a space for intergenerational conversations needs to be there.
නමුත්
And that is why when we talk about an intergenerational or collaboration,
මෙන්න මේ
we think about it more like a more like a relay race, a baton race. And for those of you who do athletics, if you do the 4x100 or the 4x400 or whatever, you know that there's a certain point when someone is running, as he reaches his teammate, the other person will start to run, and then there's a certain point where you hand over the baton, right? And you need to ensure that you get it right, so that there's a quick, easy, seamless handover. And that is what we are in. That intergenerational dialogue is the handing over of the baton to the next runner, and we need to do that right. But we need to practice, and that means that we need that space, and that means that we also need to be humble about our limitations and open for conversations. And that means that we need to connect with each other. 20 years ago, the world was extremely different when the tsunami took place. 10 years ago, the world was extremely different to where we are now. 20 years ago, if you can imagine, the concept of having a smartphone didn't exist. Right? For those of you who remember, I don't know whether Dr. Noble you were. I don't know whether you remember, but we used to have these Nokia phones.
Yes.
Very, very small, and you could actually drop them on the ground and they wouldn't break. But they were very small. Nothing else. All you could do is send voice calls and SMS. How the world has changed since then. So the world is continuously updating, and it's happening fast. And we need that transfer of the batons that are there. So I just want to maybe finish off, because I also don't want to make a monologue. As I said before, I want to create a dialogue with you, and I want to be able to kind of have that. First of all, young people are not homogeneous. So you need to take an intersectional approach to them. You need to recognize their multiple identities. They need to be engaged now. We need to co-create with them and co-lead with them. So there needs to be a space for their ideas to be shared, and for them to also take action. We need a different business model for how we will work in the future. And I often say that the business model that we operate in, whether it's the humanitarian sector, whether it's the business sector, all of these things, but particularly the humanitarian sector, because this is what we're talking about here today. It's working on a 19th century infrastructure using a 20th century business model addressing 21st century needs.
හදාගත්තු
So we need to
පහසුකම් යටතේ
rejig that.
කරන්න. නමුත්
And it's
මේ
up to us and to you to kind of challenge that,
මුණ දෙන්න සිද්ධ වෙනවා.
to find spaces to challenge those business models to make things better, not to just accept.
මේ වගේ
You know, there's a, I don't know whether many people know this, because culturally, the fairy tales are shared differently, right? But in the European fairy tales, there's a great fairy tale that talks about the emperor with no clothes. The emperor who had no clothes, and the story is very simple, right? So there were these two people who came to an emperor in Europe and told him that they've identified the best material to make a suit, and it's innovative, it's the best, no one will sort of do it. And so the emperor commissioned them to build him, or to construct, or to sew this new suit for him. And effectively they were con men, and there was no suit, but they pretended there was a suit. They said that the material is so fine you cannot even see it, but when you put it on, you will see it. So the emperor believed them, and when he put it on, they convinced him that they were putting on a suit, even though there was nothing there. They were putting on a suit, and all the people around him accepted for a variety of reasons. And so he went for a walk in the town, even though he had effectively no clothes on, but people were saying, yes, wow, what a beautiful suit, we understand this, it's a beautiful suit and everything else, because they had been told that this is a new material, the finest material, and only special people can see that. So no one wanted to question it, apart from a young person, a child, a young person who said, well, actually, I don't see anything. The emperor has no clothes. So remember, for me, that fairy tale kind of explains the importance of that intergenerational dialogue that we have. Sometimes the young people should be telling us who has no clothes. And so I want to kind of leave you with kind of 5 things, what I call a 5x4 matrix. And because I'm an engineer, I kind of think I need to have some sort of logic. And so I think that the future and co-creating youth engagement recognizes the roles of young people as architects, as agents, as anchors, as amplifiers, and as advocates. So 5 A's: architect, agent, anchor, amplifier, and advocates.
Okay. And
the only way you can do this 5 roles is you have 4 key things, 4 key areas that you focus on: co-creation, co-leadership, an intersectional approach, and an intergenerational approach. So architect, agent, anchor, amplifier, advocate, co-create, co-lead, intergenerational, intersectional. That's the 5. That's my idea of a 5x4 matrix for youth engagement. Dr. Novel, I think I will stop there, because I am really keen to have more of a conversation and a dialogue as opposed to a monologue. And so I'm open to comments, questions, challenges, and anything else that is up there. So I will leave it to you to come back to me on that. First of all, thank you once again for having me join you today, and I hope that whatever I've said is at least sparked some thinking in your heads, and I'm happy to move forward on the next level. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, I had to jump into interpret, and then it was really good. And I jotted down on the chat the 5 roles here: architects, agents, anchors, amplifiers, and advocates. So that was very useful. Thank you so much, Dr. Amjad. Now let's open the floor for discussions. Our participants always have a lot of questions. So yeah, please open the questions. The session is open for questions. Yeah, thank you so much putting on those points as well. It will really help us 5x4 matrix. Thank you so much. Any questions? I have a question to start off.
Yes.
We have a lot of partners here. Most of them are social entrepreneurs who are young. You know, they are themselves young, most of them, except for few like large organization like Indonesian Red Cross. So now, you know, so how can they claim their position? One point we are trying to bring them as organizational partners here is to give them a visibility and give them some branding and give them to show that the world that they exist. And there are many, yeah. In Africa, our colleagues would say there are many organizations, and even in Indonesia, many organizations, in India or whatever the other country, there are so many youth-led organizations, but it's so hard for young people to become visible. So what could they do as young entrepreneurs to let the world hear them and also invest in them? You know, these young people are so talented, but the only challenge is very few people are lucky to get angel investors or organizations to invest in them. So what is the message for the young people to claim those 5 roles? I mean, some practical tips for them that would be very useful. And then please it's open for others. I will keep myself silent, but over to you, Dr. Amjad.
Thank you, Dr. Novel. That's a very good question. I think that's a very tough question, right? Because I think every one of us, you know, being an entrepreneur, and as particularly a social entrepreneur, regardless of whether you're old or young, is a tough thing, right? It's I mean, you know, if you speak to most of the successful entrepreneurs nowadays, they will tell you the same thing, that the same challenges that they had. I think, and I don't want to sound patronizing here, right? But I do think that we need to recognize that this is a marathon and not a sprint, which means that a lot of the work, that investment that we need to do is the work has to be, we have to do the work to get there. And yes, our voices need to be heard. Yes, our voices need to be, we need to have that, but also recognize that we don't necessarily need to be at the top of our game right at the point of where we are. And I think that increasingly there is a sense, and I come across it a lot, where people feel like the path to that success is linear, and the path to that success is very quick. And I think we underestimate the amount of time that is needed to actually get there. I was actually reading somewhere, I don't know, came up on my social media feed about Usain Bolt, and most of you should probably know who Usain Bolt is, right? He's a very famous Jamaican sprinter, broke the world records for 100 meters, 200 meters, and everything else, right? And you know, like, people sort of say, well, you know, he ran 100 meters in less than nine minutes or whatever, and things like that, on 9 seconds or whatever this thing is. But to get there, he practiced quite a lot, right? And I think what we need to do is that we need to recognize that there's an element of hard work to be put into that. So one is that don't be discouraged at the moment that where you are, because I think you just have to keep on putting in that work, number one. Number two is that I think exactly what you're doing, Dr. Novell, in kind of creating platforms like this is important, right? If there's no space at the table, there's two things to do. Either create your own table, build your own table, or force your way onto that. What you have done, Dr. Novell, is you have built your own table. And I think that's important. And that's important for us to continue to kind of provide those opportunities for that type of exposure, that type of work, and that type of connection as well, right? It's also about creating those communities to connect. So, people who are in Tanzania or in South Sudan or in Indonesia, you can learn from others from other countries, from Sri Lanka, from India, whatever. And maybe there might be something you've learned from there that will help you. I think that's extremely important to recognize, is that community is important. Those connections are important. And then I think it's to continue to be that advocate, to amplify those voices, to make those connections where you will be able to get that break and to get that recognition, but to continue to invest in recognizing that this is a marathon, to take those breaks and to kind of recognize that that this is a long haul. I often tell, particularly university graduates, right, when they when they ask me like career advice, I often tell them that your career is not a straight ladder that you climb up. Actually, a career is currently now is like climbing a mango tree, right? You climb, you go up, maybe, and then you go sideways. Sometimes you have to go down, and then you go up again, right? And that's how you need to kind of figure out that perspective. If you think and you get frustrated because you want it to be a ladder, then it's going to be extremely, extremely challenging. Then what you're doing is that you might as well go and work for a corporate entity. But the mere fact that you, as social entrepreneurs, have decided that you're going to take the challenge to make the world a better place, but work for yourself. I mean, that in itself is a huge achievement, because not everyone has that courage to do that, right? And there's a very wise Indian sage who said that achievement comes from the courage to begin. And so I think, and courage is not the absence of fear, but courage is the ability to move despite having that fear. And I think you have already demonstrated that. And I think it's just about being dedicated and passionate to actually recognize that you have to go through that, but also recognizing that there will be tough times. And in which case your community that is there, and I'd like to think that the 34 of you who are here, you're a community. You need to support each other in this, pull each other up and down. I hope that answered, Dr. Novell. I'm not sure whether I kind of did that, but I'm hoping I actually gave some pointers that are there.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So you were very right. There's so much competition at the table. So what we are trying to do, exactly as you mentioned, is to create a table and try to sustain this table so that we could help each other. And then I love your idea about career is not a straight ladder and it's like climbing a mango tree. And also this very wise saying you mentioned about achievement comes from the courage to begin, and courage is not the absence of fear, but the ability to move despite having the fear. So thank you so much. This gives some perspective.
And also, Dr. Novell, don't, even in sustaining, right? Something as simple as just having a Zoom call on a regular basis so people can connect with each other, that is sustaining. You don't need to, we shouldn't be fooled into kind of thinking big. And that's why I'm saying that small actions matter. small actions matter. It doesn't need to be big multi-billion dollar things, right? It can be very small things that really make a difference for people. And that is why even for us, we often say that when we talk about youth engagement, it's not about $1 million, it's about $100 or $200 just to get ideas on the ground, because that's what's also important. Those things matter, but these things are also important.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So to add to that, so far we have had 3 sessions all together, and each had over 30 participants. So, and this we will continue this for another 7 times, 7 weeks. And so all these organizations have volunteered to do that, and our teams have volunteered to do that. And it really speaks to the fact that you said small things do matter. So, I mean, we have been able to influence people with that. So that's really good. But I will really, really wish I saw you, Pesh. You wanted to ask a question, but please go ahead, Pesh. I think you wanted to ask a question, or anybody else want to ask a
Yes,
question.
please even feel free to write it in the chat. And I'm happy to answer it. I don't know if the translations are working. If people want to ask and the translator can share it, I'm also please, whatever way or if you feel free to ask in Sinhala or in Bahasa, and someone will translate somewhere. So
yeah, please go ahead. Any ideas, questions? Please, maybe we'll take turns. Africa, Asia.
I have a question.
yes, Kiri. No,
Yeah,
not Kiri, it's Isuru.
This
And then
is
yeah.
yes.
I mean, in Sri Lanka, people are uh, not maturing at young age. People are maturing at around 45 to 50 years of age. But in other countries like USA, they have more youth and youth entrepreneurs, youth leaderships between age of, I guess, 18 to 25. So why is that Sri Lanka is not have temperament and not have the talent to mature at young age in this stage of life, stage of 2024.
thank you.
Back then we have good young leaders back in 1970s, 80s, and 90s. Now people are laid back behind and let other people to dictate the terms in organizations as well as other institutions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So I think I would disagree a little bit with your question, right? It's not that people are not maturing at 18 to 25 in Sri Lanka. It's that the opportunities for progression, and it's not just Sri Lanka. I think it's largely across the world. I mean, look at even. I mean, we talk about the US, or we talk about Europe and anything else. I mean, we still have and when we talk about leaders, who we're talking about, most of us think about, and I guess you were referring to political leadership, right? And most of the political leadership is still old. I mean, we've just had an election in the US, and we've had a 78-year-old man who's been voted in by young people as well, right? So I think that it's not that young people are not maturing. I think people are getting that idea, but it's the fact that we are not recognizing the opportunities to co-create with young people. And I think this is the change that I'm talking about here now, right? Even within the humanitarian sector, let me put it this thing, that for a long time we were doing things for young people without consulting them, right? We just came in and assumed that this is what young people need. That is changing. So there is a change that is coming up, and you are also part of that change, but you also now need to kind of discuss around how you can co-create, how you can create opportunities, not to be gatekeepers for young people, but to also bring in young people into your conversations as well. because often the danger is that we end up perpetuating the same problems that we've been fighting against, right? So we end up sort of saying, well, young people are not being given spaces for conversations, and then the moment we are brought into that space, we forget to bring others as well. So I think that there is an opportunity to think about how we can create those spaces for those conversations. So in Sri Lanka and in many parts of the world, there's still a tendency to look at young people as mere beneficiaries. And I think we need to move that conversation from being beneficiaries or simply service providers to being leaders. And that takes time. And that takes a movement away from tokenistic representation, tokenistic consultation. So the idea is that, and this is where all of us play a role in this. This is where you play a role in this. This is where we create that space for that intergenerational dialogue. So I think it's about creating that opportunity for us to think about where young people can contribute, what they can contribute to, and how they can contribute. The second aspect of it, and I think this is where I do agree, particularly what you're saying in Europe and America in terms of the opportunities for contribution. In most parts of Asia, Africa, right, there's still a very standard way of how we think about success in life, right? And success is measured on monetary value. Success is measured on education, rightly so, that you need. But when you talk about education, we're talking about becoming, and particularly I would sort of say in Sri Lankan context, if you're a doctor, an engineer, lawyer, you're seen as successful. If you're something else, you're not seen as successful. And I think we need to flip that now. That education is really it should be about creating a space for you to interact with each other, obviously to understand and know the world, but also kind of see where you can contribute. Jack Ma, who's the founder of Alibaba in 2018, he was asked about the future of education, and he said something very interesting. Right? He said, well, to be honest, by 2030, most of the things will be automated. So we need to be looking at what education is creating that is not where people can do things that are not automated, right? So maths, science, all these things, a large portion of them will be automated. A large portion of those jobs will be automated. Because where it's going to be where the humans have a unique advantage over AI is on values, is on life skills, is on leadership skills. And so when we talk about education and we talk about these things, we need to also be bringing those values and those principles and those ethics into it. And that's where it is. So I think that one of the things we need to be doing a lot more is sort of figuring out how do we measure, what are the metrics of success in how we measure whether someone has succeeded or not. And it's very difficult, right? I mean, Dr. Novell, he's a medical doctor. I mean, I have a PhD, but I have an engineering background, right? And I can tell you one of the times when I first started working in the humanitarian sector, I left my engineering job, right? A large portion of my extended family just couldn't understand. How come you've worked, you were an engineer and you're working for an NGO now. And, obviously in Sri Lanka, NGOs are also seen in a negative light, but they couldn't understand that you could work in that space. But for me, it was about taking what I'd learned to contribute somewhere else. And I think there's a large part of what we need to do is to kind of change that narrative around how and what we can contribute on. And so leadership is also about showing that contribution. So I think that there's two aspects to your question. I think one is that we need to change that space in where people talk about how young people can be included. And this is what we're doing now. This is what you are doing, but also what are the elements of success so people are able to contribute in the best way that they can. I hope I answered that. If I haven't, please come back to me. And Carrie, I think you have a question, and then I think there's a couple of questions in the.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Amjad.
Let's probably go to Kiri and then come to this question in the chat by Andrew Magong. Over to you, Kiri. And just to add context, Amjad, we have a lot of participants from Africa, as you know, who have been multiple time displaced and joining us from camps. So please, yeah, that is a bit context. But over to you, Kiri, yes.
Thank you, Dr. Nofil, for allowing me to speak. Thank you, Dr. Amjad, for the presentations tonight. And mostly it's about sharing stories, right? I like stories.
Yes.
Thank you. Reflecting 20 years ago, I just graduated high school, and few months later, a tsunami struck Aceh. I wish I can go there, but during that time, maybe volunteers, young volunteers, are not so much allowed, or so I went to college, and then the next year after I graduated in 2010, I was called to Aceh for a recovery project. So it's just a fresh graduate, right? So I met mostly old folks. And during my time in NGO, that time, only few young people. So I think NGO or humanitarian works is only for old people. But I think since climate change issues are become hype, especially like Greta Thunberg when she started out of school a global strike, and she went to the politics. So now I think young people are more engaging in environment issues related, to crisis. So I see now the shift. So do you have some advice for young people to be part of humanitarian? What to prepare? Some technicals or some knowledge? What should have we prepare? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carrie. It's a good question, and okay, so so I work for the International Federation of the Red Cross, Red Crescent Societies, right? So basically, for those of you who do not know who we are, and obviously we have folks from PMI who are here, Palang Merah, Indonesia, who is one of our members, one of our strong members as well. Every country that signs up to the Geneva Conventions adopts a national body that is auxiliary to government in the provision of humanitarian and social services, and that is the Red Cross or Red Crescent Society. One of the fundamental principles of the Red Cross is volunteerism. So one of the fundamental parts of the Red Cross or Red Crescent is volunteer service. We have 16 million volunteers across the world. Half of them are under the age of 30. So actually we have a significant youth population as volunteers. And most of them join in school and everything else, and there's opportunities to carry on that perspective. What we've also seen now is that a lot of young people are no longer volunteering for big organizations like the Red Cross, because what they're looking for is ability to make quick impact. And sometimes with organizations like the Red Cross, it's quite big, it's quite bureaucratic, and sometimes the ability to make sudden shifts is not there. But we also recognize that a lot of young people are now wanting to go for causes. They're not interested to be part of an organization per se. They move from cause to cause. So, like you said, climate is one aspect of it. That yes, a lot of people are very interested in climate, and so they want to go. A lot of people are interested in conflict. A lot of people are interested in mental health, and so it is also the ability to provide those opportunities for people to understand that they can contribute where they are. The second aspect of this as well is that we also recognize that volunteering is also part of it's like a roller coaster. So when you're in school and college, you have a little bit more time, so your ability to volunteer shoots up, right? Because you have time. Once you leave college and you start working, you get married, you have kids, and then you suddenly see it comes down, right? And then you retire, right? You retire, and then you have time on your hands again, and so it goes up again, right? And that is why you will see that in some places there's extremely young volunteers or extremely old volunteers, and the problem that we have is between the age of 30 to 50 or to 60. We don't have many there. And I think that's a challenge that we need to understand, is how can we sustain people whilst they have other commitments? And nowadays, the commitments are so much that people do not have time. And so we need to be able to kind of look at that. So I think it's a challenge for us to not only look at young volunteers, but also to look at volunteers who are able to sustain whilst they're working, whilst they have other things, whilst they're, and so looking at how they can contribute. And so I think that even for us at the Red Cross Red Crescent, we're looking to figure out how can people volunteer based on where they are. So their circumstances means that they can only give maybe 1 hour a month or whatever, and that's fine. We need to look at that. I think with young people who are there, I mean, look, in any emergency, we know that the local community, young people, old people, they will respond. And so the opportunities for us is to create those opportunities for them to be part of something. Within the Red Cross, for young people who need some sort of solidarity, structure, a sense of achievement, a sense of significance, a sense of this thing, the Red Cross offers something like that. And so that's why a lot of people come and a lot of people stay. It's part of the uniformed opportunity. All of these things are there. I think we also need to look at continuous training for young people, continuous recognition, right? 20 years ago, if you volunteered, you did it for the goodness of your heart and you felt that this is something that I just feel like I need to do. Sometimes it's a spiritual calling. Sometimes it's part of your religious kind of thinking. It's not, I don't think we can assume the same thing now. And so we need to create opportunities for people, regardless of their motivations. If they would like to volunteer, then some people will volunteer and they want they don't want to be recognized or acknowledged. They just do it. Some people want to be acknowledged. Some people want to be recognized, and we need to kind of create those spaces for that. We also need to create opportunities where people can volunteer where they can. For young people, it shouldn't be too bureaucratic. It shouldn't be. It should be showing impact on the ground, and all of these things. And I think this is where I think that you're seeing a lot more of that. Particularly Greta Thunberg type of thing, because you can actually show direct action. And I think this is something there that we need to continue. So I think that it's about creating more of that space for allowing a diversity of voices to be included. And this is why I kept on going back to kind of say that youth are not homogeneous. They're heterogeneous. And so we have to meet them where they are. And we have to create opportunities for where they are. And I think this is something that we need to talk a lot more of. That is there. Where are people at? How can we meet them? And not to assume that everyone is going to do. And you and I and everyone in this place has different time constraints and different this thing. And so not all of us will volunteer or contribute in the same way we can. And it's not, you cannot expect that. So we need to be able to kind of create that space for that. I hope I answered.
Thank you, Amjad, for that answer. And I think I want to confirm about the intergenerational approach can help on filling the gaps, and maybe some other is about making more some academic, humanitarian academic, or something like that. I think it's some more opportunity can make the call. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Novel, I'm going to go to Peck. I see you have your this thing, but let me just answer some of the questions on the chat.
Yeah.
There was a question from Andrew around what can you say to a young person who works daily to ensure that people in refugee lives live better lives, whilst he or she is willing to do the same back home in the country of origin? I'm not sure I fully understand the question, Andrew. I don't know whether you're able to unmute and sort of explain, because I think I've got the thing, but I just wanted to clarify that question.
Okay, Doctor, the question is, if, for example, I actually live in refugee settlement. I used to go back home and do the same thing that I'm doing, but I don't have the opportunity. What can I do?
Sorry, I didn't fully get that. Dr. Novel, did you get what? Because I think he broke up a little bit.
Pesh, I think you would be in a good shape to explain what Andrew was trying to say. I have trouble listening. Pesh, if you don't mind, can you kindly interpret for us? Interpret, or try to explain what Andrew was trying to say. I also couldn't get it clearly.
Is it in the chat? Let me try to check in the chat, because
but we want him to elaborate it, but we couldn't really get much. Maybe Andrew, repeat.
Or maybe Andrew, if you can elaborate a little bit what you said on, because unfortunately I couldn't hear what you properly said on this thing. So if maybe you can elaborate a little bit on your chat, that'll be good. I'll come back to you just there, and then I'm just going through.
Okay.
I think,
okay. The way I'm understanding that, how can young people in the refugee camp maybe live a better life? Okay, how can they change their life? Then at the same time, what strategy can they apply in order to take the same skill to their country? Maybe when war is also there. Yeah, that's what I think he's trying to say.
Okay.
I don't know if
all right. Thank you, Pesh. No, I mean, I think that I cannot even say that because I've been privileged enough not to have been displaced, right? But I have family who has. And I know the pains of displacement. I know the pains of being a refugee. I know the pains of that. I think that one thing that I know, and this is from my experience from having worked over the last 20 years in humanitarian settings, is just that often, and we say this within the Red Cross family, Red Crescent family, is our youth engagement strategy talks about moving young people from being members of affected communities to being volunteers, to being leaders. And the way that we do that is we provide them space for education. So there's a space for education, and I'm not talking just about formal education, but I'm also talking about non-formal education, like I said, life skills. There's a space for empowerment, right? So it's that we need to create that space for them to feel like they can take action on the ground, they volunteer, and there needs to be enabling conditions. And we need to create that. And that's on us as the Red Cross. But I know that from many people who've been refugees, who've been volunteers and everything else, that the first thing that they often say is that they've never become a victim of their circumstance. And this is the first thing that a lot of people are, when I've asked them, like, how have you managed to, you've gone through a lot of trauma, you've gone through a lot of this thing. And they've always said that we never became a victim. We wanted to become a victor of the circumstance. We wanted to ensure that we were able to make the best of what we had. And so we never took it as negative. We took it as an opportunity to become to improve. And in that sense, I'm reminded of a saying by a survivor of the Holocaust. His name is Viktor Frankl, and he said that between every stimulus and response is a space, and in that space is your choice and your freedom to choose your response to the stimulus. And he said that this was how he managed to overcome all the trauma that he faced and to become a victor of circumstance. And this is something, if you look at many of the historical leaders, whether it's Mandela, whether it's Martin Luther King or Mahatma Gandhi, all of those things, they had a specific discipline where they became a victor of circumstance, right? And it's difficult. And, all of us, until we're faced with a trauma, we don't know how we will respond, right? But it is about inculcating that discipline, that mindfulness, everything else to be able to kind of do that. And so I think that part of this is just thinking that you're not a victim, you try and do something with it, and which is why we have our volunteers at the Red Crescent are not people who are from external. They are flown in and they are from the communities. They are local. Most of our volunteers coming are themselves affected by whatever circumstance, whether it's a conflict, whether it's flood or rains or whatever. They themselves are coming from that. But they become volunteers so that they can channel that trauma, that fear, into doing something positive to help them. And so I think part of that is, as you said, is that you are doing something to make sure that people live better lives, and you continuously help develop that discipline. And it's not easy, but that's where your spiritual, your mental, your physical, your emotional, all of those things come in, and you have to work at that. So all of us, we can't, like an athlete training, they have to eat the right food, they have to sleep the amount of time, they have to do all of these things. All of us have to do this, right? And it's a continuous journey. So all of us have to be we need to be emotionally strong, we need to be spiritually strong, we need to be mentally strong, all of these things. And whether it's your prayers, or whether it's your meditation, or whether it's your mindfulness, or whether anything that you do, whether it's your family, these are things that help you to sharpen yourself to be able to meet those challenges, and to be able to understand that your response to the stimulus, you have freedom to choose that. And I think that's part of what you would do. And then, of course, you channel some of that fear and some of that anger and some of it into something productive, like volunteering. And I'm not saying come and volunteer for the Red Cross. No, right? There are other organizations here, but just sort of be able to kind of channel that into something there. I'm not sure, Andrew, if I've answered it, because we weren't able to hear you very well. But I'm hoping if you are able to type it in the chat, then we can go on that. I will go now to Pesh, because Pesh has been waiting patiently with his hand up, and then I will come back to the chat as well. So Pesh, over to you, and then I will be looking at the chat as well.
Yeah, thank you so much, Doctor. There's one problem in our place, Rhinocam. I live in Uganda,
Yes.
Africa. Then there's one thing that is I've observed for many years. For example, sometimes we have sometimes partners can come for meeting. Let's say UNHCR,
Yeah.
they come to community, and or even Red Cross. They come to the community. They collect youth feedback, and then they try to ask for ways that they can try to improve how maybe engagement in their communities. But at the end of the day, regardless of those things, all it is better to incorporate those feedback into those policies. Okay. So sometimes when we have initiative on that, we advocate for it, but still they don't. For example, even youth like Rhinocam, we have over 40 organizations that are locally for the youth, then and so many partners there. But mostly, we like in 2022, we came up with a network that was to just like a network for all the CBOs, but it was really not funded. And sometimes there are a lot of policies that the partners will be asking, but at the end of the day, they will not fund you. So really, how can we ensure that youth are ensured, youth feedback are collected and they are implemented into those policies such that their initiatives also prosper? Yeah.
Good.
I don't know if you got me well.
No, thank you, Pesh. No, I understand. I get the frustration on this, right? And this is a big problem that all the big international agencies have, including the Red Cross, right? We ask this community, and you've told us maybe 10 times we're not coordinated, and so we come and then we take that, but we're not doing anything. And that is a big problem that is there, and I acknowledge that as well. I think that there's two things. One is that I think we ourselves as international organization, we need to change how we're doing this, right? So yes, so that is why, like I said, one of the things we're trying to do now is looking more at changing the business model so that we're not consulting young people to tell us what to do, right? But we're actually sort of saying, tell us your problem, tell us your solution, and we will help you to solve that problem. So it's not even about saying, tell us to change our policies and this thing. What we're sort of saying is we're giving you agency to do something with the problem. Now that in itself is a huge shift, right? It's a huge shift. Now imagine if you come and say, well, actually, Mr. Red Cross, I only need $100 to put my problem to have a solution for my problem. For example, I only need $100. Now, the Red Cross will go, oh, okay, that's a problem because we're not used to giving $100 to you, Pesh. We're used to giving $100. We're used to giving $1 million to Uganda Red Cross to do work in Rhino Camp. Right? Our business system doesn't allow us to give $100 to Pesh. So now we have to. So now we are challenged to actually do this, and this is what we're trying to do. Then we're trying to do this a little bit now. It's going to take some time, but the idea is that yes, we have to do this because that is like I said, we are all of our organizations are 19th century infrastructure with a 20th century business model and 21st century needs. We have to make it 21st century infrastructure and business model, and this is a business model. So it's going to take time, and I think that's part of the process. But equally, I think part of what this means, and we're seeing it slightly, is for sometimes for us to be challenged to say, actually, don't, if you're not going to listen or you're not going to, don't give us any money. We don't want it. We don't want it because you're not listening to us and you're not taking this thing, and we're not going to work on this thing. That also forces us sometimes to change how we're doing it. Because currently, if you're saying that there's 40 organizations or whatever in in Rhino Camp that is working. If 40 of you say we don't want, I'm sorry, we collectively have said this, we want this change, we want to create we want to build a new table where we want to invite you to come and sit with us. If 40 of you say that, it provides a huge challenge for us. But if 38 say it, and two come and say, oh, it's okay, give us the money, then we have a challenge, or you have a challenge, because it's become, and so whilst financially there's a financial element to this, it cannot also be about money. And so I think that there's a two-way process there. And I think that we need to work much more harder at being able to incorporate what you're saying and actually work, but as well that to some extent, communities also need to work harder to ensure that they're united in this and not following this thing. Because if two of the 38 come and tell the international organizations, thank you, give us the money, then those international organizations are going to work with it. But if 40 of you sort of say, well, actually, until you change the way you work with us, we're not going to accept it. It forces us to change. It forces us to change, right? So there's an element of that internal advocacy that is needed. But the business model has to change. And this is something that I'm probably not very popular in my organization, because I am trying to disrupt the business model, right? I'm trying to just disrupt. I'm trying to tell my finance person that actually giving $100 to Pesh works. I can trust him. He's not going to run away with the money. He's not going to commit fraud. In fact, actually, the fraud is not committed by young people, right? The fraud is committed by the senior people who are in the organizations, who are running away with millions of dollars. So, but it takes time. And I think this is part of what we need to do. And this is why your spaces are important, to continue to be those advocates and those amplifiers as well. I hope I've answered that question, Pesh. Dr. Novel, how are we doing for time? I know there's a couple of more comments there. Gayatri, in terms of your,
another 15 minutes or so.
Okay.
7 is the time.
Yeah. So in terms of your comment, in terms of the educational system, yes, I think that's something there. And again, it goes back to how we think about what the educational system, right? Most of us are still the standard formal educational system is there. But to be honest, I think that we also really need to rethink what formal education is, what non-formal education is. And actually, there needs to be a holistic approach to this, right? Because most of the jobs that will be there available for humans in the future, the current education system doesn't cater for that. And so there's going to be a disconnect somewhere. How can we ensure that youth engagement initiatives, especially young refugees in Africa, are inclusive and representative and diverse? I think it's, again, to recognize that those young refugees exist, right? To recognize, there's a very, I had family who was affected by the tsunami in 2020. But that's one of the main reasons why I got involved in this work, was because I had family who were directly affected by the tsunami in 2004. And up to that point, and they were displaced, and they were in camps, and they lost their house and everything else, right? But my family, they were doctors, they were lawyers, they were teachers, they were not people who one normally thinks as vulnerable and everything else. Yet overnight they became vulnerable because of the circumstances. And that caused me to rethink how, because sometimes when you think about people who are refugees or people who are displaced, your opinion of them is your opinion of vulnerability is very skewed, right? And I think first and foremost, just to recognize that someone who's been displaced or who is a refugee or who's seeking asylum, often these are people who are just like you. People who until something happened for their circumstances to change, they were prominent members of their society. They were probably well educated, and all of these things. And so your view of how we view refugees and how we view people who are displaced has to change. They're not sort of poor, vulnerable people. Some of them come from those communities, but also a lot of them don't. And so they have value to add in this conversation. And so they are the communities who are also part of the conversation. You know, they know much more how to solve their problem than we do from outside. So I think we need to have that. We need to have that conversation. Secondly, we have to recognize that diversity is a very positive disruption, by the way. Right? It's a very positive disruption, by the way, because it brings different ideas, different thinking into this thing. If we have everyone the same as us, then we're not going to have this thing. Diversity brings that different thinking into it. Even in this space now, all of us come from diverse backgrounds. You're able to provide a difference of opinions that actually make things better. So I think the second thing is to actually recognize that. And so we need to have those voices in. The third thing is you need to model it. So rather than sort of, let's start with how we are diverse, right? So the organizations we're in, how much are we including people from there? How much are we recognizing? How much are we making it inclusive? And that could all be from very intentional things, so we go out, but also from very practical things, right? I work for an organization that's called itself inclusive and diverse. This was previously, and that we would accept anyone and with everything else, until someone who was physically disabled on a wheelchair came, and we figured that the person couldn't enter the office because there was no ramp. Right? There was no ramp for the person to enter the office. Until that person came, we actually thought that we were inclusive. We prided ourselves in it. Until we physically thought, hang on, that person cannot even enter the office because there's no ramp. So we had to build a ramp, right? And so it's important that we also figure out what are the things that are excluding people there, and then how do we work to ensure that is there, and how do we model that? In terms of joining the Red Cross, please, in Uganda Red Cross is quite active. They do a lot of work. I think they're quite active in Rhino Camp. I'm happy to connect people with that. We have some good initiatives that are there. I know that there are problems. I'm not saying they're perfect. There's always problems, but I am happy to connect, and I'm happy to kind of do that. And Dr. Novell has my details, and I'm happy to connect, or you can find me on LinkedIn, and that is there. Andrew, in terms of refugee settlement, where you want to work and where you think, I mean, I would sort of say currently where you are, this is where you can make the biggest impact and effort. And this is where you can do it. If you get an opportunity later on back to your country, then I would sort of say, then this is where you look at that. So I'm hoping that is there. I don't know whether there's any other questions. I've hoped I've managed to go through all the comments that is there. If anyone has any other questions, please feel free to ask and to tell me, Amjad, you have got everything completely wrong. We disagree. I also like this.
Thank you so much.
Maybe Dr. Novell, in terms of diversity, maybe I will do a little a little test. Let's do a little experiment, right?
Wonderful. Yeah.
And I think for the Sri Lankans in the room, you might know this because this was done by one of our cricketers, Kumar Sangakkara. He did this there, but I really love it because it shows diversity. So what I'd like to do is, people, if you are able to switch your cameras on, please switch your cameras on, and if you are able to unmute, please unmute, and we'll do a little game. And I think you will the Sri Lankans will recognize this, but please bear with me because I think it really shows diversity and why we need diversity and why diversity is important. So I want you to take your hand, your left hand, like this, and I want you to take your right hand, one finger, right? I want you to clap. Do it like this, like this. No, just one finger. Just do like this. Can you hear anything? Not much, right? Not much. Now you take two fingers. Two fingers.
Somehow increasing the volume.
Now you take 3 fingers. Now you take 4 fingers.
I can hear something.
Yeah, you take 4 fingers. Now you take 5 fingers. Right? The sound comes when you have 5 fingers.
Yeah,
the sound.
And each of your finger represents a diverse member of your community. Each of these fingers represents a diverse member of your community. So only when you are there, you are making that sound together. So that for me is why we need diversity in all the conversations that we have. And that is why if you want to make the biggest noise in clapping, make sure that we're diverse. And we need to model this as youth organizations. Because if we're accusing others of not being inclusive and not being diverse, not being accessible, how are we doing it? So it's important that we also do this as well. Dr. Novel, back to you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Amjad. It's really, really interesting session. And yes, let's give a big round of applause for you and for sharing it. And it's really, we still have 25 participants out of maybe 35, 36, even at the second hour. So it really shows the engagement and the interest of the group. And yes, thank you so much for your time and very grateful insights. I think this gives us a strategic direction also now in our photo war of resilience. Probably we were trying to get young people engaged, but I think this intergenerational narrative is so important to get even generations, other people from other generations also to contribute, and then we can have a much more stronger dialogue. I think that is one lesson for me, and also the importance of inclusivity. And also, I think we really encourage the importance of even small initiatives at your location. They are not small. Like, today, some of the young people who are joining and they can do what they can do at their location, and even a person with $1 million cannot do that because that person is not at that place. So I think these are very powerful lessons. And with that, I would like to invite our maybe other two coordinators. They had to leave because today they are starting their MBA program with Roxburgh, so they just starting.
Okay, very good.
Both of them in this row, so they had to go for that.
Excellent. I'm happy that they're doing Roxburgh, and that's, for me, that's another opportunity. So Novel, if people here would like to join Roxburgh and this thing, please share that with them, and please let me know, because I can recommend them to join, and I will speak to this thing about this, right? So please.
Yes, wonderful. Yeah, we will do that. Yes, and I think Peshi is trying to bring in, I think, 300 youth for information session for with Puja probably. Yeah. So that's great. So Pesh, I will hand the floor to you, maybe to make a thank you speech on behalf of all the young people here, and then we can end the session. Over to you, Pesh.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. I'm quite sure it is now evening or good night in other places. So, yeah, but here it is evening. Yeah, I'm quite sure in Singlat, in that side of Asia and Singlaka, it's a bit night. Why you're talking, Simon?
Wait, I'll mute Simon. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Amjad Salam. I really don't know how to call your name very well, so you may forgive me. Yeah, so I really thank you so much for the wonderful session. At least today we got some information that we also have to also work upon, such that we can improve on our partnerships with different people. Yeah, thank you for all the ideas and for the all amusing, for the wonderful knowledge. I'm quite sure the youth that attended today, they'll go back with something, because it's through information that the world can be changed. Because the knowledge that you give us today, when we also give it to other youth, or to train other youth on it, to really do something great. So I really appreciate you so much for your time and for all the insight. So, and then to our wonderful participant, I also thank you, plus partners. I thank you so much for also being being in the session. At least today, many people were in the session, except the previous session, where people could drop out and they cannot come back. But the real today, I thank you so much, all the participants and partners. So let's continue with this spirit, and we should also make sure let's continue to bring our fellow youth for the training, because we still add more youth into the program, so that we can have the knowledge can be transferred to different regions like Africa and Asia. So the partners, so you make sure let's continue with the spirit of working together, and continue to encourage our participants to join the session. And also to our participant, you may also make sure that you try to do your assignment, because sometimes when we have a session like this and you don't do your assignment, that on really will not be good, because as human beings we can forget. See, and if you just maybe attend the session without doing an assignment, so it's really not good. So let's try to do our respect assignment that is assigned to us, so that we can really have the knowledge, because what is given here, it should also be put on ground, so that we can change the world. Because now, at least this platform now should be a platform that can change us, because we are really working harder to ensure that Tsunami has to run to other regions also, not only in Africa. We are looking for ways to take it also to US and other regions of the world. So I'd like to stop here, and thank you for listening to me. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Pesh. And before we end, we have to offer a very big thank to one special person. That was our amazing translator, Indonesia, Raisa Rangana. Raisa, thank you so much. We really appreciate. Maybe I will now end the interpretation, so that you can be in the main room, and we want to probably, if you could kindly switch on your camera, we would like to give a big round of applause for you. Raisa, are you there? Is it possible for you to? Yeah, if not, yeah. So thank you so much, Raisa, for your time and energy. Ranga, you want to say a few words from Indonesia, because we have to be representative and inclusive, though Kiri is not there. Ranga, over to you. Maybe you can just say a few words of thanks.
Hello. Yeah. On behalf of the partners in Indonesia and also participants in Indonesia, I'd like to say thank you for this great forum. I hope we can continue good and improve. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And may I now call upon one of our Sri Lankan participants? I think most of them are joining for the first time, so I can't call out any names, but we would love if one of you could kindly make some remarks. මම කාර්යක විල්ලා සිටින අපේ ශ්‍රී ලාංකික සහභාගී වන්නන්ගෙන් කෙනෙක්ට කෙටි ස්තුති කතාවක් කරන්නයි කියලා සිංහලෙන් හරි කමන්නේ ඉංග්‍රීසියෙන් හරි කමන්නේ ආරාධනා කරනවා. Can someone make few comments if you don't mind? Anybody? Maybe
from Africa. I think Simon.
Okay, Simon. Okay, go ahead. And then maybe can I invite a Gayatri? Gayatri, maybe you want to say a few words of thanks. It would be really appreciated. Sorry for picking your name, but I saw your comment. I thought you might be able to say a few words about from Sri Lanka, if you don't mind. Okay, we'll go to Simon, and if Gayatri is ready, you can do that. Otherwise, we'll drop it. Yeah, over to you. You want Simon to speak? Yeah? Okay, Simon, over to you.
Like I saw him speaking, maybe if he has something to put, yeah.
Yeah, Simon, please. Okay, easy. Okay, then maybe we'll call it a day. Thank you so much. Everybody would really, if they had opportunity, would have said so many good things about the session. Thank you.
Hello.
Yeah, hello. Please go ahead.
Yeah, sorry for the late.
No worries.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah, really thank you for this session. Actually, this is the first time I participate here, and accidentally I was show that notice and I was there. So I'm very happy today, and thank you especially Dr. Amjad and Dr. Noel. So I will happy today, and we will surely meet again next session. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Yeah. So, okay. Pesh, you want to give another try for Simon, or we will end then? Just see whether Simon would like to say something.
No, I think let's now end the session. Maybe because he's in camp. Sometimes the network may not be well. Maybe he's not getting us well. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Let's end the session. Wonderful. Thank you.